Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fan Interference with Wichita Wingnuts manager Pete Rose Jr. Fan Interference is a weekly program that gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the Wichita manager questions about the Wingnuts, baseball or sports in general, or just seek Pete's wisdom about life events that are going on. In this week's episode, Pete tells us why he thinks football is a lot more exciting than baseball. He assures a Cleveland Cavaliers fan that there's nothing to worry about as long as LeBron James is on the team. And Pete tells us the greatest April Fool's Day joke that he's seen. So let's get right to Fan Interference. So let's welcome back manager Pete Rose Jr. Pete, do you have team updates you'd like to talk to us about?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple signings. Obviously, TJ's back, and Marty Medina's going to come back. We signed a catcher, Zach Fisher, who caught for me back with the White Sox, who played in Austria last year, left-handed hitter. He's going to come in and help out with Marty. Harry, I think Harry Kane's coming back. We're just getting everybody kind of back and moving, and everything just kind of, falling into place. I mean, obviously we're still looking for some pitching, and, I think everybody's going to do that, but I think I feel pretty good position-wise, where we're at right now. And, we'll just have to wait, for another month once camp gets closer, and everything will kind of, shape up and fill itself in. But I'm extremely, happy with our position player situation. And, we got some good starters that are coming back. We got good relievers that are coming back. And, we added a couple pieces on the pitching staff, and I'm sure we'll add more. So, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be another exciting year. And, like I've always said, we're going to be on time, and we're going to play the right way. And those are the only two things that I'll guarantee it, because both those things are going to happen just like last year, and we'll see what happens.
I had to say that I thought that the acquisition of Medina last year had such a dramatic impact on the pitching staff. Glad to see him back this year.
I'll tell you, Rob, he's a baseball player. I mean, period. I mean, you don't have to do the running game. He can control that. He can control the staff. He commands respect. That they like throwing to him. And he was a first baseman. He's a converted catcher. When he played for me with the White Sox, and I fell in love with his play just by the way he played the game, just by the way he loves to play. He comes to the ballpark every day. He never changes. He never. You couldn't tell if he was 0 for or 4 for. And I'll tell you what, his catching skills have come, twofold than when he first started, and it's a tribute to the way he works. I mean, he works really hard, and he's gotten, really, really good as a catcher, and we're really lucky to have him back. I mean, I'm glad he's back. And same thing with Fish. I mean, I've been with Fish for, I had him for 2 years, and he was MVP of Great Falls in 2014. He's a left-handed hitter, can catch and throw. I think he went to New Mexico State, I think it was. But just quality kid, just like Marty is. So I think our backstop situation is going to be pretty good. So I'm looking forward to having both those guys.
Would that have any impact on Brennan Salgado returning, or that hasn't been decided yet?
He's definitely going to be back, and I think with Big Sal is he can do so many things. I mean, he can play the outfield, he can be a third catcher. He could probably play first base in a pinch. But the thing that people don't realize is this kid can flat out hit, and he's only going to get better as the older he gets. The more he understands, the more he has at bats, and I think him coming back, and I expect him to come back. I mean, we're just so versatile as a team. I mean, we were last year. We're probably going to be the same this year. But I mean, for him to be a third catcher, I mean, it's a bonus because if you need to pinch hit somebody, if you need a left-handed bat coming off the bench, now you have Sal, but now also you have Fisher, which both of them have some socks. So it's kind of it's a blessing, man. I mean, it just for him to be able to catch, it just adds his value. But I think he's going to get a lot of time in the outfield. He's going to get at bats, and he's just going to be better than what he was last year. And last year was really impressive with Sal because he'd sit for a while and come off and just throw out a 2 for 3, and it's like, really? I mean, how is this happening? But the more you watch him, work in the cage and BP and stuff, he can flat out hit. I mean, he can just flat out hit, and you really can't understand it. You don't try to understand it. You just know that, if he comes to the plate, he's going to be swinging, and there's a good possibility he's going to hit it hard somewhere.
Yeah, boy, he just really seemed to catch fire for you, too, as the season was going along.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's only going to get better as well by the more at bats he gets. I think the consistency with at bats. I mean, that's what I'm saying. For him to be able to do that at the end of the year after sitting basically for the whole, not the whole year, but the majority of it, it's really impressive. And he's only going to get better. And you know what? I think when an organization figures out, what kind of pop this kid has, what kind of bat he has, that he can be a third catcher, he can play in the outfield, maybe play in the infield, and his character. I mean, he's still so young. I don't understand why he's not, in a rookie ball setting right now, or even a low A setting, at the bare minimum, because I definitely think he's more than capable to get the job done.
Well, let's head to fan questions this week. We first of all begin with Tom from Wichita. He'd like to know how you feel like the team is looking in terms of direction you went for the Wingnuts.
The direction is great. I mean, Josh does a great job in putting our guys together, and you've heard me say it, I don't know, maybe 150 times, is, if you tell me that, I can have the same exact team that I had last year, I'm good. I'm okay with that. And the reason I say that is, I get to be around them every day. I get to see how they interact with each other. I get to see how they work. But more importantly, I get to see how they play for one another. And I think the majority of the guys that are going to come back, they're quality kids. And I think, when you can have quality kids, not just 1, 2, 3, but, 22, 23 of them, you're giving yourself a chance to win. And I think that, I'm not – do I expect us to win? No. I expect us to be on time, and I expect us to play the game the right way. That's the only two things that I do expect. Obviously, the game's so hard. Obviously, you want to win. Obviously, you play to win. But, I think my guys understand what I expect out of them. And, you don't really have to tell them to do that. They just kind of come and do that, and it makes my job, really easy. But when you have all the quality kids like I have, I love the direction that we're going. I think, we're only going to continue to get better. Everybody's going to know each other just a little bit better. We tasted it last year. Now maybe it's our turn to go out and see if we can get it done. But you know what? We're going to be on time on the 18th. I think it is, against Laredo, and we're going to play that game the right way, and whatever happens, happens.
Next comes Lisa from Wichita. She tells you, she says, while I'm sure you like to be back in affiliate ball yourself, I would think you have to like this extra month off.
It's fantastic. I mean, it really is. I think as a player, when I played independent ball, I didn't like it. But as a dad, I love it. I get to see some more soccer games. I get to see some more baseball games. I get to do some more carpool in the morning, and at afternoon, I get to have some more dinners. But my goal is to manage in the big leagues, like we've talked about many times before. And if it means being away a couple extra months, I'm okay with it. But I'm going to take the extra months that I get now, and I'm going to enjoy them, and I'm not going to bellyache about them and everything else. But it's definitely great to be able to be home in May or in April. And, like today, we'd go down the opening day parade, and, if I was in affiliated ball, I'd be getting ready to open up my season. So I'm definitely going to enjoy it. And, it's actually a good part of being in Wichita.
Sean from Hayesville would like to know from you. He says, why do they recommend that kids not throw curveballs at all until they're like 14 or 15? Isn't this putting them at a disadvantage versus international players?
I'm not a pitching guy, but I think they're more worried about the stress on the kids' arms. But going from a kid that I would play catch for hours on day after day after day after day, and I try to throw curveballs and everything else, and knock on wood, my arm was pretty much okay. I mean, I think it's here we go again with the analytics and all the studies and all this and everything else. But you know what? When you're little, I mean, what's is it about getting better, or is it about striking out guys? I mean, I think it's, I think once you get to high school and you get your senior year, I think you should be at your best, as opposed to being the best 10-year-old or the best 11-year-old or the best 12-year-old. I think you just need to get better. And I think if you can, use your fastball and maybe have a changeup where you're not, stressing your arm, I think that's better for me anyway as a manager. I would much rather have my kids do that. My son doesn't pitch. We hate pitchers in our family. We always have. I was taught that way, but if my son did pitch, I think I would hear it from my dad. So we just don't do that. He just kind of plays the infield and goes from there. But, I understand why they don't, and I think it's a good thing. But, I think it's all the analyticals and all the surveys and all the tests and all the data that they get about that stuff. So I'm on board with it. It's okay.
The one thing I've always been kind of curious about this, it's the discussion is always about how you're helping to save these young kids' arms and ensure that they're not burning them out. But I want to ask them from your perspective about this is that I would think you're hurting the growth of hitters by them never seeing curveballs until they're like 15, 16 years old.
I mean, that's a great point, but you don't worry about the hitters. If you think about big league baseball, you think about college baseball, you think about high school, it's all about the pitchers, and I understand that. But, if you talk about big league pitchers, I would think that if you're healthy enough and you can take the ball, I think you need to take the ball. Why? Because you're being paid on, how much money you're paying. But as far as hitters, I don't really think, I don't think they take that in consideration when they start talking about that because, you can tear your Tommy, you can have Tommy John just by swinging. You could, pull the ligament off just by swinging. But, it's seldom done, but you can do it. But I just think the game's kind of catered towards pitchers and pitchers' arms and all these surgeries. And, it's just funny because, you look back in the old days and, guys would pitch, pitch batting practice to hitters on their bullpen days.
Yeah.
They'd throw 9 innings. It wouldn't be anything for the first game out to throw 9 innings. Why? Well, it was all about winning. Didn't have all this, the surgeries and this and that and everything else. So, that's a good point that you bring up because I'm more for the hitters, but, I never really thought about it that way. And you know what? The more I sit here and think about it, it's actually true. I mean, you are kind of hurting the hitters because, they don't see it, but then somebody will tell you, well, just go hit off a curveball machine. Well, why would you do that when you're not going to see them until, high school? So, kind of pick your poison, you know what I mean? But that's a great point. I mean, I've never thought about it that way, and that makes a ton of sense.
Because I would think that the one thing you always hear that's, a negative about a hitter or something like that is don't hit the curveball well. Well, if you're not even giving them the opportunity, then how are they going to get good at that?
Right. And I'll give you a tip on how to become a good curveball hitter. Don't miss the fastball. And if you can remember that, you'll be a great curveball hitter. But you know what? It's like anything else, man. The more you see, the better you'll be. And I think, that just kind of comes, like you said, you just don't see them enough as a kid, so you don't expect kids to recognize them. But you know what? Young kids need to hit number one, regardless of how hard it is. If at the bare minimum, make contact. I mean, that's another thing. We could talk about that for hours to where, strikeouts are just kind of a cool thing these days. I hated the strikeout. I never struck out. I mean, I hated it. Like, I remember when I was 15, I played a Legion ball, and I was the youngest kid. I struck out once. It was the last game of the year, and I felt terrible. But I was always taught, you always make contact. 2 strikes, you try to put it in place. So it's just there's some things that are lost arts these days, and it's just it just kind of makes you scratch your head sometimes. But I think that just kind of goes in the day of the technology era that we live in. You know what I mean? But I love the point about the hitters. That's a great point, and it makes a ton of sense, man. I mean, it really does.
Henry from Wichita would like to know. He says, Pete, my friend says baseball is boring and football is way better. Tell him why he's an idiot.
He's right. I mean, baseball is boring because it's funny, and I know this sounds terrible from me coming, but I would much rather watch the Bengals than sit here and watch the Reds. I don't know why that is. Maybe because I play and that's my job. But you have to love baseball in order to sit and watch it. And don't get me wrong, I'll sit and watch it. But, during the year, once the game's over, I don't want to talk baseball. I want to go out and, enjoy my family and talk about other stuff. But it's a tough game to watch as a fan, especially on TV. I just think it's slow. And it's what I do. It's what I've always done. It's what I've always wanted to be. I probably love it more than anybody. But, I can understand why people say that. But we're talking about the Who Day, so we're going to talk about the Who Day. Then, that take precedence over anything except maybe one of my daughter's soccer games or one of my son's football games or something like that. But if we're talking about football and the Who Day, that's going to take precedence over anything.
Chris would like to know, he says, what do you do as the manager when there are players who don't get along? Is one just dealt?
Usually it happens, but I think, more so you got to figure out if you sit down for 5 minutes and you talk to him, you can kind of figure out if he's going to be a bad guy or not before you sign him. And I think if it becomes a problem, you call him in the office and you sit him down and you talk to him. And I think that's part of being a manager is where you have to have people skills in order to talk to your players. I mean, my players can come into my office for anything. It doesn't have to be baseball, oriented. It can be, I remember, guys coming in for walk-up songs. We talk about shoes. We talk about, restaurant, whatever it is. I mean, that's the kind of managers I used to love to play for, and I remember my dad doing that so well when he was with the Reds. But, you get that one bad apple, you bring him in, you sit him down, you kind of make him understand what's going on, and, it's kind of up to him from there. He can either, make a change, and if not, and if it's bad for the team, then you kind of just say, hey, it's just not going to work. And, the team does come first before any individual. And I think all of our guys will tell you that. But, I think you talk to them first. I think you figure out what kind of people skills you have, and you figure out the problem, and you kind of just try to take care of it, without, you take care of it in-house as opposed to letting everything go out, outside.
I would think that sometimes fans get the idea as the manager that you just went there to be, this kumbaya kind of attitude. But I would think also, this is like any kind of job. If people don't get along, you just don't fire them.
You can't. I mean, because, you don't have to love each other. You don't have to like each other. But at 7 o'clock, you have to play for one another. And when you can do that, you will be closer than you ever thought that you would be off the field. But you got to be willing to lay it all out on the line for the guy to your left and the guy to your right. And when they can understand that, then usually the guy that isn't the so-called team guy, he'll understand that, and he understands that these guys got his best interest. And then, you start to see it that way. But when you can learn to do that, you're seldom going to have, any kind of bad apples, so to speak. Those are usually I guys, and there's really no I in team. I think we've heard that a million times. So those are far and few between. So, but I think if you can make them understand that it's about the team and it's about one another, not so much a team winning wise, but just it's about going out and playing for your teammates. And I think our guys do that very well, and I think that's what makes us successful. At least it did last year.
Cam from Denver asks of you. He says, I always get goosebumps each spring when I see the players' names called as they head to the line for introductions. That must be totally awesome as a player.
It's amazing. And it's funny that question came up this week, because I was telling one of my buddies here, is I remember back in spring training in Tampa, I remember I was a bat boy, and they used to give the meal money envelope. And I always wanted I wanted to do everything that my dad did. I had to have my uniform the same, hat, you name it. So I bat boyed, and they gave me $25 a week. And I remember I got my first envelope, and Joe Morgan was right next to my dad. And he sold me a pair of sleeves and a pair of spikes that were maybe a size and a half too big, but they made noise. They were metal spikes. And I remember it like it was yesterday. After I give him my $25, I put my spikes on. I went straight out to the dugout. I walked up and down about 15 times, and then all I did was having my name called, run to the line, and tip my cap. And I was probably maybe 9 or 10 years old. So it's an amazing feeling. When I just got goosebumps now. I mean, it's amazing. But I remember it from when I was little, thinking it was a World Series or the All-Star game or just even opening day. So, players today, especially today here in Cincinnati, I mean, it's a feeling like no other, and it just, it lets you know that it's either opening day, it's either an all-star game, or it's a playoff game. So, when those three things happen, you're jacked up, and there's no feeling like it. It's a great feeling.
I would think it's awesome at any level, too. It doesn't matter where you're at.
You're right. It doesn't matter what level it is. High school, college, professional, I mean, even Little League. I mean, when you get called to the line, there's something to be said to where, you're standing on that line, you're going to do the national anthem. I mean, it's special, man. It really is.
Antoine from St. Louis says, Pete, I hate the new the new intentional walk rule.
Terrible. It's terrible. I mean, here we are with the analytics again, I guess, or the speed of the speed of play or whatever it is. But I'm with you. I don't know if we're going with that. I have no idea. You might know. I don't know, but I think it's terrible. I'm a lot can happen on that intentional walk, and we've all seen it before. So I think you're kind of taking away something from the game, but oh well, I guess we got to do it.
Stevie from San Jose would like to know if you see the Giants getting it together and getting back to the World Series.
They got walked off yesterday, but they're a really good team. Bruce Bochy's one of the best in the business, and I think they got to be one of the favorites in the West. I'm sure. They have good players. They have obviously a great leader in Bruce Bochy. He's done it for years. They got a great staff. Bumgarner hit 2 home runs yesterday. I think he's leading the major league in homers today, which is great. But yeah, I think they definitely have a chance. I mean, I think they've gotten better. Melanson didn't, he didn't save it yesterday, but that happens. I mean, even the best blow saves. So, but I think he'll be back, and I think they'll make a good run at it this year.
Sal would like to know from you, why is it that star players don't seem to make as good a manager?
My reason is because they never struggle. And I think if you can struggle and have success, then you can understand players better. If that's what made my dad so special as a manager, because he never really struggled. So, but he understood on how hard it was, for guys to hit, and it wasn't just, hey, do what I do. He was more of a people's person. But I think that the star players they don't really make good managers because they never really struggled. So they don't understand if, guys 0 for 10, he's maybe having problems at home, and he's dragging a little bit, instead of, calling him in the office trying to figure out what's wrong, never been through that situation. You just kind of start pointing fingers, or you get somebody in there that he thinks is going to do it, and you get him out. So I just don't think that they struggle enough.
Phil from OKC asked, he says, with all those long bus rides, what do you do with yourself to pass the time?
You just reminded me of the long bus ride. It gets pretty entertaining. We got a good group of guys, but watch movies, try to sleep. I usually stand down by the bus driver because I really can't sit still, but there's really not much you can do. You just hope you got good movies, and you don't run out of juice in your phone or your iPad or something. And when we take the long trips and we have the nice entertainer bus, and we can play some PS4 or some Xbox in the back and do all that kind of stuff. But I'd much rather be on chartered flights where it's only 4 hours at the longest, going from, let's say, Seattle to Miami or something. But there's always a movie on or something going on there. So you just try to figure it out just the best you can. Sleep. try to sleep at least.
Oren from Cincinnati would like to know, what was your nickname in baseball? Because it seems like everyone has one.
When I got called up in September, I was always junior, obviously, just because of who I was. But when I got called up with the Reds, Barry Larkin gave me the nickname of the Hit Prince, and that kind of stuck. So everybody either calls me Prince or the Hit Prince. Obviously, my dad's a hit king, so he just kind of made it, I'm the heir to the throne, so to speak, and it just kind of sticks. So I've been the Hit Prince since '97, but, I mean, if you say Pete Jr., I'll answer those too.
Trevor from Cleveland would like to know, do you see the Cavs getting out of this funk they are in, or are they in serious trouble this season?
They got LeBron James. They're never in serious trouble. I mean, that was kind of, last night they went double overtime, and I think he had 41. So I think they're just kind of riding the ship until the playoff starts. But if anybody can turn it on and turn it off, it's the best player on the planet, and that's LeBron James. I mean, that guy he's a freak, and he's what an unbelievable player. But I think they're going to be fine because, if you're the Knicks and you have LeBron James, you're going to be okay. If you're anybody in the league that has LeBron James, you're going to be okay. That's been proven. So I think they'll be fine once playoff time comes around.
Our last question this week comes from Bruce from Prophet. He says, what is the best April Fool's Day joke you have seen during your baseball career?
I've seen guys be called into the office like they were getting cut. And I mean, it's bad to say, but those are pretty good ones. But actually, the one they did on ESPN the other day was priceless. They're talking about the roof being closed in Glendale for the Final Four, that they couldn't get it closed, so they were going to cancel the Final Four, and everybody on the set just looked at them like, what, really? And then Reese Davis says, yeah, it was a good April Fool's, wasn't it? And so I thought that was pretty good. But there's been, cops will come in and try to arrest guys, guys being released, guys being sent down. There's been all those kind of shenanigans, April Fool's. So I've kind of seen it all. But I did like that one they did Saturday for the Final Four. I thought that was classic.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us this week, Pete.
Okay, man. Look forward to talking to you next week.
We want to thank Manager Pete Rose Jr. for joining us on Fan Interference this week. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the Wichita Wingnuts manager, please send them to us at askpete@minorleaguesportsreport.com. That's askpete@minorleaguesportsreport.com. Please have your questions to us by Sunday evening so we can give Pete a little time to review them before we record the show. I'm Rob Pannier, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report. We'll see you next time on Fan Interference.